Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we are diving into a really powerful chapter from Dr. Siegfried Britton's book, Dangerous Minds. It's chapter 9, called The Mind That Learns to Feel.
You know, this quote really just gets right to the heart of it. Dr. Britton isn't talking about becoming some flawless version of yourself. He's talking about becoming real. Exactly. And that one idea is really the core of this whole chapter. It just sets the stage for this incredible journey of transformation. The goal isn't to erase your past, but to finally, authentically connect with who you are.
So, this section kicks off with a huge question. Is it even possible for a mind that's been shaped by violence and trauma to relearn how to feel? Right. And to dig into this, Dr. Britton introduces us to people living in what he calls emotional silence. This is a state where feelings aren't just buried, they seem to be gone completely.
And the first case study he brings up is just fascinating. It's about a man named Caleb who spent years behind bars totally convinced he felt absolutely nothing.
Yeah, he was living in this state of really deep denial. It's a powerful defense mechanism against a lifetime of pain. Dr. Britton explains, it's like the mind builds this wall to survive feelings that were just unbearable at one point.
Okay, now what's so incredible about this moment is that it wasn't just about sadness. It was a breakthrough. And the dream wasn't random at all. Dr. Britton explains that it was triggered when Caleb overheard another inmate talking about his son. That story just cracked something open deep inside him and released really 2 generations of pain.
And Dr. Britton has a name for this: affective catharsis. The whole idea is that this flood of repressed emotion becomes the actual raw material you need to build a new consciousness. It shows how the body remembers what the mind is desperately trying to forget. For Caleb, crying wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign that a memory was finally being set free.
In this whole experience, it's not just some poetic idea. Dr. Britton actually grounds it in solid science, showing how the brain itself can literally be re-educated.
He pulls from all these different fields to show that what we're talking about is basically a neuropsychological rebirth. He weaves together the work of 3 really key thinkers. First, there's Jaak Panksepp, whose research suggests our core emotional systems, fear, rage, and a really crucial one he calls care. They never actually disappear, they just go dormant. Which is such a hopeful idea, right? It means they can be switched back on. Then he brings in Jonathan Haidt, whose work shows that moral reasoning isn't this purely logical thing. No, it starts with an intuitive emotion. Our gut feelings always come first. So to reason morally, you first have to be able to feel morally. And then to top it all off, you have Andrew Newberg's studies on neurotheology. They connect everything, showing how spiritual practices can physically change the brain, lighting up the exact same regions tied to empathy and moral awareness.
And this just brilliantly illustrates how Dr. Britton connects the biological to the transcendent. He's making the case that reactivating the brain's care system is something you can observe scientifically, but spiritual practices get you to a really similar place. They're basically 2 sides of the same healing coin.
So let's shift to another story to see how this awakening starts to build into a whole new way of being. We meet a young man named Andres, who grew up surrounded by domestic violence. For him, anger and aggression, they weren't just emotions. They were the only language he ever knew.
After he starts his own journey of emotional re-education, Andreas has this incredible moment of clarity. It all began when he simply admitted, "I was afraid too." And that small phrase, according to Dr. Britton, was this huge act of moral courage that just opened the door to a completely new identity.
And that realization is the absolute core of what Dr. Britton calls identity restoration theory, or IRT. The main idea is simple, but it's so profound. A mind that recovers its ability to feel doesn't need violence as a language anymore.
And this is so key. Look, Andres didn't change because he was punished into it. He changed because he was finally able to connect with his own story of fear and loneliness. It's all about transforming the relationship you have with yourself, and that is what changes how you relate to the entire world.
Okay, so what does this journey from emotional silence to actually feeling, what does it look like in the end? Well, Dr. Britton lays out a pretty clear path.
It all starts by facing that silence, then allowing for that breakthrough moment, that catharsis. Then you make sense of it with knowledge and science, and finally, you start practicing a whole new way of being. It's really a roadmap to your authentic self.
And the chapter leaves us with this really powerful question. It suggests that true healing, it isn't about erasing the past, it's about transforming it. When a person no longer has to fight their own memories, they're finally free to build a new future.
But, the story doesn't just end with learning how to feel. Not at all. In our next explainer, we're going to jump into Chapter 10 and talk about how this new ability to feel can actually be channeled into a sense of purpose and how a painful past can become a source of profound hope.
If you want to read ahead with us and really dive deeper into these incredible stories and theories for yourself, you can find Dangerous Minds on Amazon. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.